Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Flux here, and welcome to Planet Coaster. This is the sort of spiritual successor to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. They're both developed by Frontier, and I personally loved Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I don't know, it was kind of, a lot of people thought differently of Tycoon 3 than I did. They weren't really a huge fan of the kind of cartoony style or whatever, but I grew up playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and I, of course, also played my fair share of Tycoon 2, but Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was really the game that I grew up on, and I just loved all of the kind of like fun atmospherical stuff that Frontier did with that game. So of course I was really happy to see that Frontier was developing a new game, Planet Coaster, which is really following that awesome, just like bright, happy atmosphere, you know, amusement park-esque kind of thing. So anyway, this is the new game. It's in alpha stage right now, and if you don't know already, it's really early alpha. Like it doesn't even come out for like 6 or even 7 months, I think, from now. So it's a little ways away on the release date, but they've managed to already pack in a lot of fun stuff in this alpha. As you can see on the bottom there, they've disabled quite a few things. There really aren't a lot of customizable options at the moment when it comes to different coaster types or whatever, but what they have added currently is they have a few flat rides, just like the basic flat rides. They've got all the scenery for what I think is 2 different themes, or maybe just 2 themes, I think, for now, like the pirate-esque theme and this like I guess just generic like modern theme. So they have those in there, and then we also have the option to play with roller coasters. Now, something to keep in mind for anybody who hasn't seen this yet already, we don't actually have the full version of the coaster builder. We've got this like very early version of it. So what they were originally planning on doing is not even releasing the coaster builder to the public during the first alpha, and then I think during the press event that they had, everybody was kind of pushing for them to, at the very least, just release it how it is and let us play with it, because I think without that, it would be not a very fun alpha. I mean, it'd still be plenty fun, but you wouldn't have the coasters, and that was a really big part of the game. So everyone kind of pushed for that, and they went for it. So just keep that in mind when you see really any videos on YouTube right now showing off the alpha, because we don't have the full version, so a lot of the coasters look kind of jagged, and like a lot of the coaster cam stuff's a bit glitchy, especially with like the corkscrews. So lots of things to kind of work out, but for what it is, and like the process, or the point they're at right now in the development process, it is really actually pretty great. Like, I like it much better than what was supposed to be the finalized version of the Tycoon World coaster editor, which was put in I guess back when they did their alpha. So anyway, as you can see here, we're starting a new coaster, and I thought it'd be fun. Again, like I said, because this game's still in alpha, there's not like a ton of different theme options. There aren't like, well, you can't even customize the coaster like color or anything. All you can do is just pick between 2 different coaster types at the moment. But because they're going to be adding new things like terrain editing and all these new features, and a full fleshed out coaster editor and all that stuff pretty soon, actually, I thought, why not just do kind of some smaller projects here and there. I was really inspired by the people on YouTube like Silverette and even like Flambly. He's making some pretty cool stuff. So there's people on YouTube that are making some awesome stuff. I thought, why not do something myself and play the game a little bit and just see what we can make. And I really like Silverette's mentality right now, which is kind of just like play around with the themes, try and do things, and try and make things that are cool for what we have right now, and just really get like experienced in the game and in the scenery editor and the building editor. And then that way, you know, when the game expands and more stuff comes out, you get some practice in, and it's pretty fun. So that's kind of the goal here. I want to really play around with as much like different themes and things as we can, and see where we can go with that. So as you can see, we're building a coaster right now, and my original thoughts were to really try and build out or flesh out this like cool medieval theme. That was like the big thing that I wanted to do when I started off. So I wanted to have like a big castle and really base everything around the castle. And as I kept going through this, I realized that I felt like I was kind of restricting myself a little bit in what I could do if I really shot for one theme. Because I mean, besides like the few pirate themes here and there, or like the pirate walls and all that stuff, I want to be able to play around with more things than just that. So I started off doing castle, like medieval castle kind of theme, and I kind of move in a different direction, and I don't really even know at this point what the theme is that I'm going for. I mean, I would say it definitely has like a very medieval, like castle feel to it, but there's plenty of different like shop storefront kind of things and different like stucco wall type things. So that's what I did in this one, and I thought it would be fun to just really play around with all the different scenery objects you can see here. We got these like really good looking like detailed scenery objects, and I honestly can't wait until we have custom objects in this game. It's going to be a lot of fun to play around with those, but really just practicing with the building editor. And I will say, and I think anybody who's played with this game so far will understand, it's amazing how easy it is at first to pick up the building editor. So just like jump in and make buildings. You can make some really good looking stuff without having really any experience at all. You can just kind of like plop down the wall, start building stuff, and it looks really good right off the bat, which is awesome. But what can really start to happen when you play with it more is you can really start to get the hang of how to use the building attachments and the decorations to really make some cool stuff. And it reminds me a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, in that a lot of people used these like very baseline objects in really creative ways, and that was the way that we made really cool looking buildings. And because of the lack of scenery objects right now, and the fact that we only have like what, 2 themes I think at the moment, it really does force everybody, especially the people that are really getting creative for this game, to just like use objects for things they're not intended to be used for, and it looks really good, and it's really fun to play around with that. And the way that they let you just like clip all the objects and put things wherever you want, it makes the game a lot of fun to play, and it makes it really easy to make really cool stuff, and not really feel like you're fighting the editor too much, which is awesome. I really enjoy it. I picked it up right away, but I will say I think even just after building this single station here, which by the way, I spent quite a bit of time on, and this first episode is going to be super long, you may have already noticed. But just in that time, I feel like my building style and even just my understanding of how the editor works has totally changed. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with just like building different buildings and moving them into each other and using different grids and like all of that stuff. So there's a lot of fun things to do. There's a lot of cool tricks you can do, and there's actually some really good videos out there already showing off some of the cool tricks and things that you can do with the editor that really let you be a little more creative with the way you build things, especially when it comes to building attachments and decorations. But anyway, as you can see right now, I just decided to start off with like the queue, and something that I've really done a lot in this game, and especially with this coaster, because I've done like one other thing before, but I really didn't do anything this ambitious when it comes to large buildings, is I like to start off by building just like very basic shapes. So you saw I started with the station, which is like a big square, and then here with this big tower we've got like a simple square structure. It's like totally flat sandstone, and all the queue areas were just like very basic shapes, and then from there you can really get in there and start adding the details and stuff. But just like building very basic shapes first and then adding the details and moving out from there is a really good way to make good looking buildings that function well. And I think that's especially true for coaster queues, because something that I struggle with a lot was just getting this coaster queue. You can see everything, all these buildings right here are functioning as the coaster queue buildings. So they're not just like empty buildings. And if they're empty buildings, it's super easy just to like, you know, collide walls and all that stuff. But when you want to make the inside look good too, it's actually like 10 times harder to make the building look nice without, you know, clipping through buildings and having like weird walls in different places and stuff. So something that I found useful was definitely just like building out simple shapes, building out your queue, and then building on those simple shapes after you've gotten them down to begin with. You can see here we're starting to go in and do a little bit more detail work, but just something that I found in this game, and I guess this could apply to really anybody or really any game, not just this game, but especially in this game. But really, I mean, I remember this happening in games like Roller Coaster Tycoon as well. But something that happened to me like midway through this build is I got a little bit discouraged by how everything was looking. And you can see here there's just like this mess of like walls and and shapes and things that I've got to like tie all together, and I might have gotten myself a little in over my head. It was about this point here, actually. You can see where I'm like adding these buildings in, and I'm like, how am I going to tie in this like diagonal queue and make it all like fit into the building and not just look totally weird? And it gets really discouraging because when you're looking at an open building like that, it's really hard to see how it's all going to turn out, and it can feel like you're just never going to get a finished building that looks good, especially if you're doing a building type like this, which is just like a whole bunch of buildings kind of combined together. And I know a lot of people building right now in this game are just making like more simple buildings that aren't off-grid, that are kind of all lined up together. But when you do something like this where they're all just like mashed together like this, it's really easy to get stuck in this place where you're like, there's no way this building's gonna get finished, there's no way it's gonna look good when it's done. And it did take a bit of willpower to just like continue working on this, because there was definitely a good at least like hour or two of like straight placing things where I was like, there's no way this is gonna turn out good. But of course, after you just, you know, keep putting time into it and really try to at least, like I said, finish the simple shapes and get like nice squares. You can see I just like closed everything off, put squares down, and then from there you can really start expanding and making the outside look nice. But it's good to at least get that far. And it was about this time also that I started trying to play around a bit more with some of these like building attachments, and you'll see I'm doing some like very basic building attachments there. I just threw down the that little spire thing and the support, which surprisingly, if you're trying to make a medieval style in any way at all, that like stone support thing in the building attachments is really, really useful. You can like rotate it and use it as all these different types of things. You can have it as like these little you know, cement blocks that are like jutting out. You can use it for pretty much anything, so super useful right there. But anyway, what I really wanted to do with this particular queue is I wanted to make sure that it was like a really interesting queue that had like kind of that overhung itself. So we've got like when you're at the top there and you're looking in from the coaster station, you can actually see into the rest of the queue. And I wanted to have it kind of wrapping around the outside, and I also wanted to have it interact with the coaster a lot, which you're going to see later on when we actually build the coaster. So I tried my best to leave lots of places kind of hanging out like that, so you can see that little crossing area that goes out in front where the coaster's going to be later on, and all that stuff. Oh, these wooden poles are actually really, really useful as well if you're trying to make medieval themes, or really anything actually that's like this pirate or like a stucco wall kind of thing. If you're going to use wood at all in your design, these wooden posts are really nice for just like differentiating different walls, or trying to like make everything look cleaner, because I know when you just have those flat stucco walls, they get a little bland and boring after a while. So I definitely think that adding those wooden posts help quite a bit. And I also use those like there's like the wooden roofs, and then there's like these little like wooden roof overhangs that you can add on like the outsides, and those are also super useful in way more ways than you would imagine. I'll probably use them later on here and you'll see it more, but instead of just using it as, of course, like the little overhang, you can use it for plenty of things where you're like adding walls in or all that stuff, and I'll play around with that later on. I think right now I was really just trying to finish up this top spot because there was just like all this mess at the top, and I really needed to just like close it all off and make all the buildings like continuous buildings. This was like my biggest struggle with this whole build, was just like making all the buildings look continuous, because you can see there's like little holes in the wall that I have to fill out, and all of these problems that I ran into, and I'm just like playing around with props right now. But that was definitely a challenge to get all that to work out. But looks like I'm just doing a little bit of work on the top here. I wanted to get a nice little like top piece to kind of finish off the top of this building, and have a little balcony and whatnot. Use some, oh, these wooden posts are awesome as well, these little wooden support beams. I started using these a lot more after I found them here, but they definitely help shape up some of the tops of the buildings, and especially in combination with the wood, or those little wood overhangs, and those little like alternating wooden or stone blocks that go on top at the very top to make the little castle wall looking thing. So definitely use those a lot. But here's again an example of using the wooden posts kind of in combination with the stucco walls and the little archways there. And then I think, yeah, here we go. I go in with these awesome, I really like these wooden walkway things, because you can bring them in like that, as you can see, and you can use them as just railings without having any sort of extra piece. That's again one of the little things you can do with these to make them look nice. But I gotta say, around this point I was definitely starting to see this castle area shaping up a little bit more. I was getting a little bit more motivated to keep working. You can see this area though obviously is still one of the hardest things that I had to struggle with throughout this build, was just getting this area closed off. In particular just that Q area right in the middle there. But the rest of the build is definitely shaping up to be like a very large castle type thing, and you'll see later once I get this stuff kind of like settled in, and I've got a couple different, you know, towers here and there, and all of the very basic shapes sorted out. I'm gonna really go in and start using a lot of the more decorative themes, especially like these, you know, windows, and I'm gonna throw in some wooden posts and all that stuff to make this look nicer. But as of now, I definitely wanted to start off by having some basic shapes all kind of set in stone here. But I also had an idea, and you're gonna see this later as well. I really wanted to have that gap between the big tower, which is still totally unfinished, and the tall middle part as being basically this little gap where we're going to have the coaster fly through, and that way it can dive in right in alongside this stuff right here where all the queue is. And when you're waiting in line and that little bridge there, and in this little building we're working on right now, you can look out and see the coaster kind of flying over the buildings and all that stuff. So we'll definitely be keeping that in mind. That's why I don't really put anything in that middle section. But here I just thought I'd play around with a few of these different decorative pieces here to kind of try and create, I don't know, some sort of overhang area, you know, have some cool oriental stuff underneath it. And I did try to play around with these windows a bit. I didn't actually like the way they turned out though, honestly. I don't know, it's really hard to work with this theme in particular, because it seems, well, it shouldn't be hard actually. It's one of the only themes in the game right now. But I really just didn't feel like any of those standard windows that come with the game right now, besides maybe a few of those like dungeony-esque windows, the ones that have like the black with the bars, like the barred off windows. Those look pretty good, I think, with this theme. But honestly, any of the other ones, especially the ones that are made for, I guess they call it the render wall, but I think it looks a lot like stucco, so I'm just calling it the stucco wall. They don't really fit too well, so I don't use them too much. I just use the other ones. But here's an example. This is what I was talking about. I used these little wooden, I don't know, support cross little beams, I guess. I don't know what they're really called in the game. Quite a bit on the edges of the buildings to kind of give them some shape. I wanted to have some cool decorative stuff because while I know this is supposed to be a big medieval castle, it's also still a theme park, so it should be kind of fun. And a lot of theme parks just kind of go over the top with all of the different, like, you know, little oriental pieces and different molding and all that stuff to make it look really nice and exciting and fun, which is what I love so much about different like theme park architecture. So I thought we'd play around with that. But here we go. Now we're finally on to the roller coaster, and I actually don't know how much of this footage I kept, to be honest with you. I played around with it a lot, and something that I really learned from just, you know, using this coaster editor a lot is that unlike other coaster editors, and I say in particular something like No Limits 2, it really doesn't pay off a whole lot to focus really heavily on the banking and the smoothness of the coaster when you're first designing it. You can see I'd straight up delete a lot of things here in a row. I'm really worried about how the banking is and everything and the flow. And to be real honest with you guys, I think that the biggest and most important thing to do in this is just to build a layout of some kind that that on paper, or when I say on paper, I just mean like from looking from above, it looks pretty good and the flow looks nice and whatever, and not worry too much about all the banking and all that little extra stuff. You know, maybe do some like very rough banking when you're going through your first run, but just like starting with something very baseline without worrying too much about the rest of that stuff, and then using the game's in-game smooth tool is like by far the best way to build a coaster. You'll save a lot of time. You won't be spending all this time like worrying about the banking. You'll just be making the ride and then going back and letting the smooth tool do the rest. And of course you're gonna have to do some, you know, adjustments and stuff once you have the finished layout. You're gonna have to definitely do a lot of stuff like that to make that work out, but once you can go back and, you know, edit it and stuff from there, it's much easier than trying to do it all, you know, when you're in the middle of actually building it. And I found that the smoothing tool is actually a lot better than what you can do by yourself, because the way the camera works in this game, it seems like, just like the coaster cam in general, it's very jolty and jittery around a lot of the areas where you do some custom banking yourself. Like every time you have like an adjustment node where you're changing the banking, it seems like the coaster kind of like jolts around that. And while I don't know if that's going to be what we do in the end here, I noticed that that was something that happened quite a bit. So to just keep in mind that as of now with the coaster builder, it's much better just to use the smooth tool than try and do it yourself. Now for this area over here, and I just went back and built it. I'm probably going to go back to that area again. You'll see, but this is the spot actually I was talking about where I'm going to have it fly over the castle wall here like that. But something that I noticed quite a bit and was actually a really cool thing that I learned is, well, as of now, obviously, there aren't actually very many inversions you can do. You can add a few, like, there's some preset ones or whatever, but you can't actually make the track invert. It won't let you go like steeper than a certain amount. But there's a workaround for this, and it was actually, I believe, Codemaster who made a really good video covering that. So the Codemaster on YouTube, if you look that up, you can see on his channel he's got a really awesome tutorial on how to make inverted track, how to make steeper drops. I have like a steep drop over there if it's much steeper than the default, so you can actually go steeper than the game lets you. But also just like 0G rolls or like half loop to a dive loop, which is what I did over there on the first element. I'm just like really, none of this stuff I'm keeping. I totally forgot that I even recorded this. But it lets you do a lot of really cool stuff with the game that, while I'm assuming will be functions that are available in the future, as of now, are not really available. Now, right now what I'm doing is I really liked the first two elements, but I didn't like the rest, so I cut that stuff back. But one thing was I really felt like the original hill was not like large enough. I thought we needed more speed. The coaster felt too slow, and I wanted like a faster coaster. So you can see right there, I just did a little trick to let me have a steeper slope, which is really just very simple. You just build the top part, then you build the bottom part, and then delete the part in the middle, and then you use the auto connect tool, which will actually let you auto connect upside down. It'll let you do these like weird auto connects on very much like so steeper than what you're supposed to be able to do. So things like that you can use to make just about anything with a coaster editor, even though it doesn't let you do you know, inversions and whatnot without using the presets. But anyway, at the end here, I was trying to find a way to wrap it up. Now, you can see that I have the track just like moving straight out from the station quite a ways. My idea was I wanted to have a cool little bridge that's kind of like coming out of the main castle and moving into a second tower somewhere where the track would like theoretically go through. So that's why it looks like that right now, and you can see I went in and changed a few things there at the end. But I think what I decided to do is just stop recording it, because at that point, once I finished that part there, I just went back and smoothed everything out, and I cleaned it all up and everything, and I wasn't really doing anything besides that, and it was getting kind of boring, so I cut all that stuff out. But anyway, this is when we really go back in, and I wanted to get some cool elements with these like building attachments. I'm trying to make these little like cornerstones with the different moldings and all that stuff. I tried to play around with different moldings quite a bit actually, but it was kind of hard to make use of them with this theme. I just feel like for the most part, moldings aren't very medieval. I mean, it really depends on what you're thinking or what kind of architecture you're imagining, but I just feel like a medieval castle, I didn't really feel like the molding fit very well, so for a lot of that, I didn't use it. And here actually, this is a really cool idea that I found on Shy Guys World. Somebody whose name escapes me at the moment, but he's made some really cool stuff. I've linked to stuff on Twitter, so you go on my Twitter, I'm sure you can find it. He's made like a big Aztec building, and he made some other stuff, but he had a cool idea of using those little like window gates to make actual coaster queue gates, which I think are super awesome, so I threw those in there. Here I'm playing around with those little balcony things again, and like I said, there's so many uses for them, and this one was one that I think turned out pretty well. I started with these two base blocks, and then I used some of these balconies. I put them upside down so they'd have these little like, you know, boards sticking out of them, and then I used these little wall adder pieces to kind of create what looks a bit like a little cubby, which you would see, of course, on the other side of the coaster where you'd be putting your stuff while you're riding the ride. So I thought that was kind of a cool use of the boards and the little overhang railing piece. So I also did some, just tried to make this area look nice and like a little storage unit or something. So I got this little like storage thing on the right there with some barrels and whatnot. And it was around this point that I realized that I needed to start like shaping the station itself, because again, it's still like a giant square, and I was gonna have to very soon confront that open hole where the queue goes diagonal, and I wasn't looking forward to it. I honestly was not looking forward to that. So you're gonna see I do pretty much anything that I can to build literally anything else before going to that part. Here I'm working on that little bridge I was talking about, and I tried doing this little like arch design, but I couldn't find any pieces that would actually bring the arches down, so I think I just went with some like little wooden boards to fix this, and then I just did the arches on either side without doing it in the middle there. But this is something that I really like doing. Right, what I'm doing right now is building individual modules, so in this case like a tower, totally separate from the building, and then moving it and clipping it into the building later. So in this case I wanted to have like a big tower with some windows and whatnot, and then I just move it in here and clip it right under the building. And if you're making something repetitive, which in this case I'm making like a castle, which definitely has lots of similar elements, it can be pretty useful to duplicate those big modules. Now, moving on to this part here, this was again quite a challenge, and this is a very good example of how when you're working with walls that need to have pretty interiors that look nice from the inside, it's significantly harder to make things look nice than if you're just working with empty buildings. So later on in this build, when I'm working on just like separate buildings that don't have interiors and they're just like decorative stuff, it's so much easier just to like clip buildings in and out. But here you can see I'm barely clipping in some spots, barely having some walls go through, but I can't build large amounts of like big long walls going into this other building because the inside is the station, so I can't be messing around with that too much, and that really limits what you can do with the buildings, and especially with just like the number of pieces we have and the fact that we don't have any half pieces. The only quarter, or I should say quarter, the only quarter piece we actually have is that little quarter tower. It's like a little yeah, it's like a quarter tower piece, I guess. That's no other way to explain it. I'm sure I'll pull it up at some point, because it's the only way to actually get that little quarter grid, by the way, if you didn't know that. If you place that little quarter tower literally anywhere inside your building, you'll get that. Oh, there it is on the bottom left there, that little quarter tower piece. If you put that down anywhere, you will get the other quarter grid. I'm sure I'll do it here to get the quarter grid on this building at some point. But that's a pretty cool feature. But anyway, they don't have any quarter walls, so if you want to have like a skinny wall, you really can't do it without just clipping it through the other walls, and that's why it's so hard to do things like that. Now this piece here, I wanted to have a really cool looking building that's taller and also made a lot of stucco, because at this point I was making a lot of buildings out of that sandstone and I was getting a little sick of that texture, so I wanted to try some different stuff. Use some wood, use some of these poles and stuff to make it all look nice. There's the quarter tile there. And I also tried clipping in some roofs by making a totally separate building and then building off of that, so we have like a nice little like barely clipping in roof, mostly because I didn't want to hit that coaster down there, so that's why that's there. But I wanted to have some more stucco stuff, because as it is right now, all we've got is like the sandstone texture. It's like repeating all the time, and I didn't dig that too much, so I decided to try something different. I can see I did get a little bit close to nighttime here, but I haven't actually played or worked in nighttime that much with this one. I haven't done a whole lot of lighting stuff yet, so I'm kind of just like holding off on that for now. I'm gonna come back probably next episode, an episode after that, and do the lighting stuff. But I did do some basic indoor lighting while it was all still exposed, and like before I covered it all up. But I'll definitely be getting back to that again later on, probably next episode or something. But here you can see I'm finally tackling this problem that I've had the whole time, which again is that one spot right there, that little queue that's like diagonal, because I need the inside to look nice on both of these, because it's the inside of the station and the inside of the queue line. And so clipping any walls together is really just not an option in the slightest, because doing that at all would just leave like weird walls coming through the walls and it would look stupid. And then the roof was also difficult because I couldn't have them be the exact same height, because one of them's diagonal, so they'd be like clipping through each other, and I couldn't have them offset because then one of the rooms would have the wall kind of coming in at an angle. So I kind of solved that by making these little curved pieces coming through, and then using them as this like little ledge or something where I'm holding some extra storage or something. So I tried that. You can see I'm playing around with a little tower right now. I don't think I'm even going to keep that one. But the real challenge again was just getting that piece to finally work itself out. Now, something that I found while I was doing this, and you can see I was like moving around this building a lot. There is a bit of a bug in the game right now, and I'm sure it's going to get fixed in the very near future. But if you haven't found a fix yet, or if it hasn't been fixed at the time of watching this video, and you run into the problem where for some reason when you're editing a building occasionally, and I have no idea why this happens, but you can be like placing walls or whatever, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, when you try and rotate the wall, one of the rotation angles just like doesn't work. So it'll like rotate 3 times, and then you click it again to rotate the 4th time to get it to like that last angle that you need, and it just doesn't do anything. It just like stays where it is, and you rotate it again, and it rotates twice all the way around again. So you can never actually get that one angle, and it's super annoying because you might be working on some, you know, roof that needs the roof tiles facing a certain way, and you can't get them to face that way because of the bug. Well, what you can do is you can place that tile that you need to work with, whatever it is, and it can be any object really, inside your building, and then click on it and click duplicate. And then once you do that, then it fixes the bug and you can rotate it wherever you want. Kind of a weird thing. I don't even know if anyone else has really encountered it besides myself, but I had it happen like 5 or 6 times, like 5 or 6 separate times where I couldn't get it to work. So I'm really happy I found this workaround, because if I didn't, I don't know what I would have done, because you know I really need that angle for a lot of different pieces. So here I'm just doing some decoration because I was trying to fill out that roof, and I realized I really wanted to have the decorations in now beforehand, so we're not dealing with trying to build all this stuff, you know, inside of a big roofed off area here. I like the look of these little barrels and the different like storage areas and stuff, so I tried to really incorporate that and make this whole area feel like, I don't know, some like inner castle area where you'd have lots of storage and lots of stuff like that. Now here on the top, I really didn't like the look of just like a flat roof on the flat walls, so I added those little support beams, which look kind of nice. I don't know, I thought it was a nice little addition just to make it look a little bit less monotonous and boring. Now here on the outside wall, those are the quarter towers, by the way, that I was talking about. So if you place one of those, that's how you get the quarter tiles. But I again was trying to put down some more stucco because it was really just getting very sandstony. And then of course right after putting that down, I made a separate building here, but again can't clip it all through the wall, so that's the tricky part here. Pretty much just covered all of it up, but I think this one turned out pretty good. I actually like the way that this little outer piece turned out, and at first I was really not liking this area. Again, it was probably one of the more problematic areas of the entire build, where I was having a hard time coming up with things to put out here that wouldn't clip through the wall too much and be visible on the inside. But this one in particular, I really liked how it turned out. I think that using lots of these little pieces, this is like where I really started to experiment with it, but using lots of those little wooden pieces really helps out quite a bit, and can help you with that. Now here, I wanted to leave the top part relatively flat. I think it's kind of cool to have the top part be like a big top of the castle where we're going to have some, you know, some towers and some cannons and all that stuff. Make it feel like a real militant castle or something. So that's where that comes in from. Now I'm just trying to really tie in this sandstone piece here, and again doing what I was doing earlier, where I built that basic square, and then I was like, okay, how can we make this thing look natural with the rest of the building? So that's where all this little decoration stuff comes in. And this outer area, actually I think it turned out pretty good. I tried to really model it after that first one there. I think that first design that I had was actually pretty cool, so I tried to use that again on the other parts of the outside. And here you can see what I'm doing is I'm trying to extend this exit, because I realized that what I really wanted more than anything for this episode is I wanted to have the roller coaster finished, I wanted to have the queues connected, and I wanted to have the exit connected. So that way, at the end of the episode, we at least have a functioning roller coaster and all the queues connected and all that stuff working well. So you can see I went as far as to actually use a separate building just to make the other side of that wall, so that this whole little exit tower wall looks kind of nice. And then this is what I really go crazy with, the wooden posts to kind of make this outer area look a bit cleaner. And on top of that, I tried to use some more of these little outer wall pieces to make it look nicer, but you can see I used some posts there. I used this, yeah, here we go. Here's the outer walls I'm talking about, but I wanted to use a lot of these. I think these were kind of key in making the castle look like an actual castle, was using those outer walls with a little alternating stone pieces to make it look like a big castle rather than like a giant stone building. So again, with the details and trying to make this area look a little bit less bland, a little more exciting, using some different moldings and stuff, using these wooden moldings, which again I think really shape up the outside and make it look not only like a castle but also kind of like a theme park castle, something kind of exciting and I don't know, just like a fun atmosphere. That's what I really wanted more than anything out of this one. So this little corner was a little bit annoying because I again couldn't clip anything into that wall, so I had to use these again. This is where this stone support totally comes into play here. Really awesome object for just like playing around with different shapes and making this little outer wall area really fun to play around with, and use that one wherever I could. So you'll see a lot of use out of that one towards the end here. But moving on past this one, I really wanted to get this top area looking nice, and I think in a minute here I'm going to be pulling out a couple different separate individual buildings for the top over here. I think I might just finish up these walls first and then move into that. I also wanted this outer area to look really cool and kind of overhang that, that little turnaround at the beginning of the coaster. That way everybody kind of leaving could also see the queue and the coaster, you know, jumping out and all that stuff. Here's the new building though. I thought it'd be cool because this castle has a nice flat top to try to design. Well, first of all, these are just some towers I wanted to make, and this design didn't really turn out too awesome. I thought it'd be cool to like try and have alternating angles on this wall, and then I think in the end I just ended up liking the one of the two angles a lot better, so I just deleted the other one and it was totally fine. But just some like big kind of beefed up towers that you would see towards the top of a big castle like this I thought would be cool. So that's what I'm making right now, and you can see I just totally delete that one there and plop this one down. But this is an example of just building one thing and then being able to duplicate it and use it all over the tower, which is awesome. I think I tried to put it here and I didn't really like the location, so I eventually ended up moving it. But definitely really cool to be able to just like build individual buildings and then moving them around like that. But here we go. This is what I was really talking about. I wanted to have that top area feel like the military kind of head to this castle, so everybody's going to be, you know, all the soldiers, if there's like some sort of siege or something, they'd be up there fighting, and they'd need, you know, like a utility building that's going to like house all the weapons, and you know, maybe like this is like the entrance to the rest of the castle from the top, so like it's very like bunker-esque. It's got like a lot of beef to it, lots of different, you know, stone and other pieces attached to it. And then I threw it in up here at the top. Now for some reason I was having some weird problems with the way that it was being placed. It was like hovering one block over and I couldn't figure out why. But in the end I got it to work. I just think I just like deleted all this stuff or something and it worked out just fine. And I tried to offset it a bit. That's another good thing about building buildings separately and really making them modular like that, is it lets you rotate them and stuff and have like unique grids and all that stuff. So over here I'm just making some stairs and whatnot for this outer part on the top. But we're definitely getting close to the end of this castle, which I was pretty happy about. It's it just had lots. I threw down lots of these cannons and stuff. I tried to put down some different like military pieces and things you would see, I guess, in a castle at some point. Some barrels. I think I put some supplies up here at some point. And I think this is the part that really tied the whole thing together. Before this part, I really didn't think that this castle felt as much like a castle. It felt a little bit more like a big stone building. So I think that really adding those top parts there really finished that one off. And then this building here, I just like for some reason never actually finished. So I decided to try and do that now, and I didn't like the way this one turned out. I think I just deleted that part and tried it again. But it actually, weirdly enough, had a bit of this like weird BioShock Infinite feel to it. I felt like the top of it just felt, I don't know, felt very like BioShock-esque, which is weird to say because BioShock does not take place at all in any time, you know, relative to like what I'm talking about here. But I don't know why it does, but it does to me. And I also try to use those flags quite a bit. I don't know, it felt like if there was going to be a big castle, they would probably be flying lots of flags to kind of show off what faction they're all about or something. I try to use these little, like, they're called like pirate huts or something, and personally just wasn't a huge fan. I don't know, it's a little bit too pre-built for my taste. Like, a little bit too much stuff is going on in this particular asset that it doesn't feel very unique to the build, so I just removed it. But here comes the flags, all the flags. Maybe too many flags, I deleted a lot of it. But anyway, that's the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be coming back next episode and working more on the queue, the exits, some different restaurants that kind of interact with the coaster, and all the detailing of the main station. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.